Exactly 1 year ago, I released my first video, a look back at one of my favourite games of all time and a masterpiece in role-playing science fiction, the original Mass Effect. This video brought life to this channel, and playing Mass Effect again had made me want to start making videos and talking about my favourite hobby in the world. It's been an awesome year and I've played so many amazing games, met loads of cool people and crafted my videos to fit with my love of the video game medium. And now, 1 year later, it just so happens to be the 10-year anniversary of my favourite game of all time and one of the most influential games that has ever released, the sequel to the game that started this channel, Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect was so brilliant in so many ways. The way it gave the player agency to craft the character you wanted to be, the science behind the mass relays, the multitudes of incredible alien races, the technology, the scale, the story, but it could have just been a single title. The ending, although it did leave so many options open for a sequel, was self-contained. The threat of the Reapers, as far as the player knew, was extinguished, the fight was over, and the galaxy was safe at least for now. But with such a successful and brilliant game, and such a well-defined galaxy of lore behind it, there was no way BioWare wouldn't capitalise on its success and make a sequel, and capitalise they most certainly did. The game's introduction is now infamous, with the protagonist you spent so many hours with over the course of the first game being ambushed by a mysterious and huge alien ship, falling through the atmosphere of an unknown planet and for all intents and purposes, dying. Was everything you sought to achieve in Mass Effect 1 just for nothing? Were your crew even alive? Shepard is put back together by the elusive, pardon the pun, Cerberus Corporation, who, if you were paying attention in the original game, were pretty much a pro-human terrorist organisation. Obviously Shepard survives, but things have changed and it's been 2 years since your apparent death. Everyone you know thinks you're gone and life has moved on. The threat of the Reapers appears to be over since Sovereign's attack on the Citadel in ME1, and the insipid Galactic Council sit on their high horses, oblivious to any potential threat, until human colonies begin getting attacked by a strange enemy force known as the Collectors, an anthropomorphic, insect-like race that I think is one of the greatest enemy forces in gaming history. Shepard is given all the financial and military support possible from the elusive man, the head of Cerberus. Given an updated version of the Normandy, with Joker returning to the helm, Cerberus seems on the surface like a positive force for change that the Council clearly is not, but not everything is as it seems. And that's part of the beauty of Mass Effect 2. Shepard is battling the Collectors, yes, and learning their involvement with the Reapers as well, but also battling the internal struggle against Cerberus and their values. Your team from Mass Effect 1 returns for the most part, but the organisation you now work for is staunch pro-human and anti-alien in so many ways. But those you've grown to love, Garrus, Rex, Liara, Tali, these characters don't fit into the plans of Cerberus in the way they did with the support of the Council and even the Alliance. The tension that Mass Effect 2 builds across its 30+ hour story, with those returning characters as well as newcomers and Cerberus lackeys Miranda and Jacob, not to mention the brilliant squad mates that you must track down throughout the game like Mordin, Jax, Samara, Thane and Grunt, is phenomenal. Who is this that you're actually working for? Who actually has your back? Will the Council ever get off their asses and believe in you in your fight against the Collectors and the Reapers? Probably not, they suck, which is why they deserve to die during the Citadel attack in Mass Effect 1. But I digress. Human colonies are being attacked by Collectors and you're required to assemble a team that can fight against these hostile enemies and try and work out why they're harvesting humans in particular and not other races across the galaxy. You get to see a completely different side of the galaxy as well, with locations in the Terminus systems and the stunning Omega space station juxtaposing Alliance and Council space and the Citadel perfectly, even to the point of complementing the game's red aesthetic over the original game's blue. It's a thematic expression of Paragon versus Renegade from the minute you load up the game, as Shepard is somewhat of a renegade in Mass Effect 2, unshackled from the Council and Alliance, working with a shady pro-human group and flanked by a much more ramshackle crew who will get the job done, even at a cost. Story aside though, what else makes Mass Effect 2 such a brilliant sequel?
You're working too hard. Here we go!
The minute you're equipped with a weapon in the opening sequences of the game, it's apparent that the combat system has been greatly overhauled. Still with the over-the-shoulder third-person perspective, with tactical cover-based shooting and the game's tech and biotic power system, but with sublimely improved shooting mechanics and weapons that feel like they actually have weight behind them, and a frame rate that doesn't crumble as soon as you're in combat. Weapon and armor choices have been streamlined to potentially be more accessible and less clunky, even to the point that you're unable to choose your squad mate's armor. Instead, they're locked into specific outfits, which were only expanded upon when completing their loyalty missions and with in-game purchases. Weapons are so much better though, and each class is locked into using specific types of weapons throughout most of the game. Although on the collector ship mission, you reach a point where you can choose one more weapon type to equip for the remainder of the game, and this is something that I've always appreciated. I usually play Sentinel, it's my favourite class by far. I love the option to have warp and overload, as these are so effective in so many situations. I just love tech armor and it looks sick and has some great upgrades later in the skill tree. But being a Sentinel means you're only able to use pistols and SMG from the get-go. The point where you're given the option to unlock an assault rifle, shotgun or sniper rifle is huge, and it changes the way you play and do battle immensely, especially for a class like Sentinel. And despite the skill trees being streamlined as well, with some finding the reduction in RPG leveling mechanics being a downfall, I appreciate that BioWare wanted to make so many changes to the game, and there are points deeper in the game where you can unlock an extra power which gives you more options for your character build. So I mentioned some of the squad mates earlier, and I still think, how did BioWare go from the team you have in ME1, Rex, Liara, Garrus, Tali, Ashley, Kaidan, and improve upon it? Well, other than Kaidan, I hate that guy. But they managed to do it. They managed to give Shepard a crew that was just as legendary. Mordin Solus is a rogue Solarian scientist who we find helping plague-stricken victims on Omega, and despite his upbeat nature and personality, he's had a prominent hand in the continuation of the Krogan genophage and holds deep pain within him. Grunt is a tank-bred Krogan, a perfect specimen designed for war, and has one of the most intriguing personalities and character arcs throughout the game. Samara is a Justicar, a matron Asari sworn to a strict code of ethics, who mothered an Ardak Yakshi Morinth, a brutal killer and a failure of the Asari species, in complete juxtaposition to her thoughtful mother. Jack is a powerful biotic, kept in isolation and tested upon in brutal fashion, and has more battle scars than she has tattoos. Miranda is your link back to Cerberus and the elusive man's top agent, a perfect genetic creation from her abilities in battle to her looks, and although she puts on a tough exterior, she has an incredibly deep personality as well and a sad history. Legion is incredible. He appears out of nowhere and becomes such an integral part of your adventure. A Geth who can speak, wears N7 armor and knows Shepard by name. He gives the player an entirely different perspective on the Geth and their struggles, and became one of my favorites very quickly. Thane is a masterfully created character too, an assassin, brutal and stealthy, yet holds a deep code close to him, much like Samara but in many different ways. The introduction to his species, the Drell, gives you an even deeper insight into some of the races that just don't appear in the original game, and flesh out a deeper galaxy in what is already ridiculously deep lore. Sure, there are some less interesting characters. Jacob I found wasn't much more than Mass Effect 2's version of Kaidan, and the DLC characters Kasumi and Zaid, although well developed, aren't at the level of these others. Each character is supremely written, and they all have such different personalities, backstories, reasons to be on the mission, and problems that you have to deal with throughout the game's story. The loyalty missions were fantastically well presented as well, giving each character that extra depth that makes you remember them even 10 years later. Lead writer Drew Karpyshyn and his team did such an incredible job of fleshing out these characters, alongside the incredible story that is perfectly paced, has huge moments of tension, all is lost moments, and all build spectacularly to the game's unforgettable finale. Everything you've done throughout your game, every decision you've made, alliance and friendship you've forged, and upgrades you completed aboard the Normandy, leads up to what is, in my opinion, possibly the best finale in a video game, the greatest mission in a game, and one that will resonate with me forever when I look back on the history of this medium, the Suicide Mission.
Approaching Omega 4 relay. Everyone stand by.
Let's make it happen.
Reaper IFF activated. Signal acknowledged.
Commander, the drive core just lit up like a Christmas tree.
Drive core electrical charge at critical levels.
Rerouting.
Brace for Deceleration.
Oh shit!
The final mission of Mass Effect 2 sees Shepard and the crew of the Normandy pass through the formidable Omega-4 relay, a mass relay that no ship has successfully returned from, and one where the crew are unaware of where this FTL jump will even take them. After tireless hours of assembling your squad, upgrading your ship and fighting tooth and nail against the Collectors, you're ready to launch into the game's stellar finale. And the minute you arrive in the center of the Milky Way galaxy, you're greeted by a graveyard of thousands of ships that failed to make the jump, got destroyed by the region's overlords, and a tense battle begins. The Collector base sits deep inside the graveyard, and from the minute you arrive, everything you've done so far in the game is tested. If you've upgraded the Normandy's weapon systems, you're able to fire cannons through the enemy. The improved shields allow you to survive the dangerous plotting through derelict spaceships, and the final battle truly begins. The Normandy Beaches itself outside the imposing Collector base, and your task in assigning your crew members to specific roles that will determine if you win or lose, and if certain squad mates will even make it back from the aptly named suicide mission. Hacking terminals requires not only a skilled technician, but said squad members' loyalty, and decisions you've made throughout the campaign can come back to bite you and see the death of your first character. Leadership of a second fire team needs to be assigned to someone with leadership skills, battle prowess, and again, loyalty to Shepard. Every step of the way, you're given choice after choice that not only affect the outcome of the mission itself, but will have repercussions in the third game. You find your missing team members near death, and even these side characters can die, and if you assign the wrong squad mate to escort the non-combatants back to the ship, it can all go horribly wrong. A strong and loyal biotic needs to support Shepard's fire team through the Collector Seeker swarms, and the list just goes on. You're tested over and over to make the right decision, to choose the right crew to follow you into battle, or to take action with other objectives in order to survive the suicide run. The mission is tense and perfectly encapsulates what Mass Effect as a series tried to do throughout its entire experience. Decisions have weight, and repercussions are sometimes unavoidable and end in death. You finally find out why human colonies are being taken and turned into mush by the thousands, if not millions, when you discover the Collectors are working on creating a human Reaper. Unfinished but still deadly, this organic synthetic hybrid is the final boss in the game, and there are many in the community who thought this let down the final mission, that it's cliche and that it made no sense, but I personally disagree. You're battling throughout the entire game to discover why the Collectors are so obsessed with human colonies in particular, and ignoring the other races. And this moment of realization culminates in a formidable foe that mimics the overarching enemy of the Reapers that Shepard so desperately wants to destroy. After the human Reaper is destroyed, you set a bomb, ready to destroy every single inch of the Collector base. But in typical Mass Effect fashion, another decision comes your way at the final hurdle. The elusive man wants Shepard to save the base for further research, and it puts into question everything you've sought to achieve throughout the game. The Collectors will die, but the base remains, along with the millions of human souls aboard, now turned into Reaper goo. You make your final decision and flee, and that final scene wherein Joker stands aboard the Normandy's airlock, M8 Avenger in hand, taking down Collectors as the squad makes its exit, is simply one of the most memorable scenes in all of Mass Effect. But my favourite scene of the entire game, and probably the entire series as a whole, is when the Reaper Harbinger releases control of the Collectors at the last second, and the puppeteered insectoid appears to come to, entirely unaware of what has just occurred. I love this one scene so much because it makes you realise that the Collectors were simply pawns under the Reaper's control, and shows you how immeasurably powerful the true enemy is.
We have failed. We will find another way. Releasing control.
"10 years on and this game still holds up perfectly. The story is incredible, writing superb, and its cast of main and side characters even more impactful than the original title, thanks to a stellar cast and superb voice acting. The gunplay is slick and weighty, the level design tight and focused, with actual tactical options in combat being a necessity on the higher difficulties especially. Your decisions cross over from the original game, and so many more will continue to the final installment of the trilogy, even with the smallest characters and interactions. Paragon and Renegade dialogue interrupts make for some hilarious, devastating, or downright brutal moments, and the game's DLC, which I haven't even mentioned here and just don't have time for, is quality story content that expands upon an already incredible game. It's wrapped in a package that isn't bloated, is full of intrigue and brilliance, and is unlike any other title.